in Egypt. We come out of Egypt. We're led by Moses. Now Moses, he's going to bring us into the promised land. He dies before this happens. We actually do come in. We're led by somebody called Joshua. Later, we're ruled by priests and judges and prophets. We say we want kings just like everybody else. So we get our first king, this is Saul. Then we have King David. Then we have Solomon. Solomon, he builds the very first temple on top of a place we're going to see soon, a whole view of the Temple Mount area. Jump forward, you get to people called the Assyrians. These are what I call empire killers. And they destroy everything here, apart from Jerusalem and apart from the temple. That job goes to the next people down the line, the Babylonians. They come in, out go the Assyrians. We are exiled. We end up coming back in with the Persians, who have now kicked out the Babylonians. We're allowed to rebuild our temple. This is temple number 2. Jump forward, we've got somebody, this has been very nice for us by the way, until if we jump forward we get to somebody, I'm sure most of you have heard of him, Alexander the Great. Ruler of the world as it's known in those days. Big problem in life, he dies, but he dies young without children. This means his generals up here, down there, they're all fighting. Who gets what? Out of all this chaos, after about 260 years, there actually are 2 kingdoms. In the middle, there's a small Jewish empire called the Hasmonean Empire. This is going very nicely until it means the Romans. You don't mess with the Romans, in they come. Now, the Romans run a franchise. It's a bit like today, you know, somebody, you buy a McDonald's hamburger joint, yeah? That's a franchise. As long as you run the show properly, you pay your money, your taxes to Mr. McDonald, everything's fine. That's how the Romans run things here. They placed one of the really important kings here, King Herod. He pays his money, pays his taxes, everything's fine. By the time he dies, this is very roughly 2,000 years ago now, there's one man walking around. And he's preaching, and he's performing miracles. He's in the Galilee. Who are we talking about? This is Jesus. If you want Christianity though, it's a proper religion, because for this point, it's actually for about 300 years extremely dangerous being Christian. If you're really lucky, when the Romans catch you, you end up being a slave in Europe. If you're unlucky, you end up being killed, crucified, or you end up playing with lions and entertaining other people. It's not fun. If you want Christianity as a religion, official, you've got to jump forward to the Byzantines. The year 325 AD or CE, same thing. Constantine is the emperor. He sends his mother here to build churches, and she does, all over the place. She builds one that we, at the end, we're going to see as well, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Things are going really nicely for several hundred years. And then who comes along? If you remember, our friends are good to us, the Persians. They let us come back. Now they're destroying all the churches. Out go the Byzantines. 14 years later, guess who come back? The Byzantines, because the Persians are kicked out. 10 years later, out go the Byzantines. They're kicked out by the Muslims. This is now the rise of Islam. And we're going to see again on the Temple Mount area, we'll see the Dome of the Rock, we'll see Al-Aqsa Mosque. These things are now up there. You now have the Muslims, one dynasty after the other. They're all fighting, you know, for control. We want it, no, we want it, that kind of thing. Their attention gets distracted when people from Europe come in. These people are called the Crusaders. Don't mess with them. If you ever see one, smile nicely, because they are here for 200 years and they're defending the holy Christian sites. They do it very successfully, but by the time they get pushed out finally, after 200 years, back we go to the world of Islam and the Muslims. We have the Mamelukes, they're here for 200 years. By the time they leave, they're pushed out by the Ottomans. Now you might think Ottomans, does that mean Turkey? You can think Turkey if you want, but really think Ottoman Empire. They built the walls we see around Jerusalem today. A lot of people come here, they look at these walls and they say, wow, these are 3,000 years old, amazing, I gotta touch them. I don't want to upset anybody, they're actually 500 years old, but if you look carefully here and there, you will see stones going back probably 2,000 years, probably to the time when the Jewish temple was up there. And the temple, not Solomon's, not the one after that, I'm talking about the one rebuilt again by King Herod. We can jump forward again in time, because the Ottomans leave, pushed out after 400 years, 1917. In come the British. the Great Wars, not World War I yet. Commander-in-Chief, General Allenby. Remember the name because we're going to meet him later again. They're here, the British, until 1948. At the very end of 1947, we have something which is called a vote in the United Nations for the declaration or the creation of the State of Israel. And we get it. It's created. We have the State of Israel. The only problem is the Arab nations round about kind of disagree. We have what's called the War of Independence, 1948 through to 1949. By the time all the dust settles, everything's calmed down, Israel is out there. In there, what we're going to do now, the old city, the four quarters, that's actually Jordan. So we're now standing on no man's land, which you probably wouldn't be standing on because up there were sentries and guns all pointing this way. 1967, we have the 6-Day War. At the end of it, we've retaken the old city. We go in and we see basically three of the old four quarters, the Armenian, the Christian and Muslim. The Jewish quarter, it's kind of been wiped out, razed to the ground. Not a lot there anymore, which means before we rebuild it, which is why it looks newer than the other ones, in go the archaeologists, they look and find all kinds of stuff going back to the very first temple period. In other words, over 2,700 years ago. And it's all there, it was just waiting to be discovered. What we're going to do now is go into the old city, and we're going to do it as follows. We're going to go around this building, and then we're curving round with the road. It's about a 3-minute walk. That's going to take us into the Armenian quarter. This technically is the Christian quarter, really. We're going to go into the Armenian quarter. We're going to turn left at a street called St. James's, and we'll try and regroup there. We actually started out just by Jaffa Gate. So the reason it's called Jaffa Gate, very simple. If you go that way, west, for long enough, you get to the ancient coastal port of Jaffa. It's right next to Tel Aviv today. So, we're going to be challenged. I know we're a big group. Let's try. If anybody wants to volunteer actually to be the guy or the lady at the end, what's called the collector, that would be fantastic. If not, we'll kind of get through with such a large group. So, group of 16.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys can kind of bring up the rear, I'll be looking out for your orange or kind of skirt. Let's start.